I can't speak for nobody else, but when I tell y'all this grind is real, it's real. I am literally glad to be back on this microphone and posting yet another podcast. What's good, everybody? Happy Wednesday. You'll probably be listening to this at some random, anonymous, unexpected point. But if you are tuning in, welcome. This is your first episode. Welcome to you as well. Brate Podcast, back at it again. It's Brate82, BT. Doing what I do, sharing what I love, expressing how I feel, talking this good old stuff known as sports, gaming, and music. And man, I don't know what to tell y'all. Like, the past week or the past few days has been just a constant movement. But it's been a good movement. And I say it the way that I do because I want folks to understand, or I want my listeners to really realize that all we can do is progress and move forward. I'm going to be very fair because I did initially, it's kind of limbo whether I was going to say this or discuss it or not. I am not going to make any comments or any discussions about the election in this podcast. I'm a man of my word, and I'm going to stick to that. And that's only to be fair in conflict of interest. And it's not that I don't want to talk about it, or it's not that I'm not willing to talk about it. It's just a challenging yet tall order to talk about when you have to be able to make it a open-minded conversation. So I just wanted to get that brief disclaimer in there early and get that out of the way before we continue with another productive podcast. So if you're looking at the image, I have a lot of information to share. I'm literally looking at my laptop, and I'll be the first to admit I have a lot of tabs, but I'm not going to let those tabs affect what I have to share. It probably sounded super loud just now, but hey, it is what it is. I want to make it clear that there's been quite a world of stories that have happened or that will be happening in the various sports, gaming, and music communities. I still have to do this, and I may have mentioned it in one of my podcasts because I initially wrote it down, but it looks like completing it is not on the agenda right now. And that is that I need to listen to Young Jeezy's album to see what it's about, because I always like to make sure that I'm fair and lenient in my musical approach or listen, and that's just how it is sometimes. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and do our format and let it be what it is. So first topic, go ahead and give y'all a little flair or a little taste of the sports life, and what better way to do it than to talk about our fantasy league, good and bad, I guess you can call it. And then I'll go ahead and go into my weekly picks, because I had my tabs actually set up to talk about my weekly picks, but instead I'm going to go ahead and talk about Fantasy League. And I'm talking about Fantasy League first for a reason, because supposedly I need to learn my running backs, because I had a running back starting who should have been on the bench, and I benched a running back who was the starting running back for the Oakland Raiders. Now, granted, the Raiders did lose, but beyond that, the running back that I would have started or could have started would have gotten me an extra 30 points. It would have kind of gave me a little bit of a leverage in points, even though I think this is my second win. So rah rah, sis boom bah, won't you do it? Praise break, all that. Let it be what it is. So on my team, based on who I have, three of my guys who are Latavius Murray, Latavius Murray was who had the breakout game that I sat. DeAndre Washington and Anquan Bolden, all on. This is their bye week, so I have none of them starting. I decided to sit Alex Smith this week because, from sheer observation and just overall perspective, it's a lot easier to not even deal with him playing, even though they're playing. And it's not just because they're playing Carolina. It's a smarter move in the long haul. So I will likely be starting Jameis Winston because, and I didn't think about it until I looked at my team just now. So Seattle, Russell Wilson is actually playing against New England. I don't know how to feel about that because New England can bring a bunch of John Does to the team to just go after the quarterback. So not expecting anything less there. But I've went ahead and I'm going to go ahead and start Jameis Winston. He did have full practice. Looks like Jacquizz Rodgers didn't participate in practice, so I'm going to see how that chance turns out, and just got my other players kind of playing what they play and doing what they do, because right now it's just I am playing just to be on the board, and hopefully I can surprise myself and get an actual win next week and just see what it is. Now our infamous weekly tradition known as NFL Pick'em, or as I call it, NFL Pick'em. We are on week 10. Overall, I am 48-6-2, so I have to count. As I mentioned to a lot of you all before, my draws do consider themselves or are acknowledged as draws, so they are the way they are. So I'm just gonna go ahead and choose my teams for week 10, and I'm picking this week a little blindly because I have my teams in front of me, but I'm going to pick this as streamlined and as lenient as possible. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and do what I do, which is struggle. So first game, Browns and Ravens. Again, unless the Browns can show me otherwise, I'm going to be picking against them for a while. I have Ravens for that game. Chiefs Panthers. It's in Carolina, so I'm picking Carolina. Rams and Jets. Funny story with this matchup. Everyone's waiting for Jared Goff to go in. I'm gonna let y'all know now. Jeff Fisher ain't about that. He's gonna stick to what he thinks works. You won't see Goff play this season. I'm gonna go ahead and say that now. If it happens, it's gonna be because, as they've mentioned before, he's pretty much. It's gonna be clear and obvious that the Rams are out of playoff contention. So, I'm gonna pick a surprise pick and go with the Jets. Battle of the Birds, Falcons and Eagles. I really want to pick Falcons. I really want to pick Eagles for this, but the Eagles have been in a slight struggle for a couple of weeks, so I'm gonna go ahead and choose the Falcons. Texans and Jaguars. I'm breaking my pattern because I did say I'm gonna stick with not picking the Texans for the rest of the year, but for this matchup, I'll pick the Texans. Let's see. Broncos and Saints. Broncos should have that game pretty much sewn up. Packers and Titans. We'll take the wild pick and going with the Titans because of the ending given Sunday, but it's Green Bay, and Green Bay really needs wins to more than anything dominate their division. Vikings Redskins. Vikings concern me, and I say that the way I do because I've seen a major decline since they started off undefeated. So with that being said, I'm picking the Redskins. Bears and Buccaneers. Partially because I have him starting, and also because it only makes sense. I'm gonna pick the Buccaneers. For the 4:00 matchups, Dolphins and Chargers. Gonna pick Dolphins. 49ers and Cardinals. Picking the Cardinals. And before anyone asks, because I'm going to go there and get that out of the way as well, I'm not going to talk about the Kaepernick story about him not voting. Not on this podcast. Not even worth wasting the time. What I'm looking to be is game of the week, and it's solely because of the teams and because of the hype, and you'll see a lot of unexpected conversation. Cowboys and Steelers. Going to actually pick the Cowboys, and I know for a lot of people that's going to surprise them, but I've picked against them for quite a few weeks and have not been doing a good job. So, I mean, 7-1 should kind of be a sign of good things to come, I guess. The 8 o'clock game, Seahawks Patriots, you could kind of consider this as the game of the week A or game of the week .1, whatever you want to call it. Going to pick the Patriots, especially with it being in New England. And on the Monday night game, Bengals Giants, just because it's there and because it's literally a wow factor if it doesn't occur, because you never know with how Monday night games go. I'm picking the Giants. So those are my picks. I will be making sure I have them all notched out. Hopefully I can get that blog up and ready for my viewers on tomorrow. By the way, if you are following my blog at brite82.wordpress.com, I have gotten into a better rhythmic flow of finally getting my episodes to be in a blog format. I was a little behind for a while, but it's starting to come back around. So just wanted to share that with everyone. So one of the games that I watched or that I got information about over the weekend involved the New Orleans Saints and the 49ers. I'm inclined to believe that I got that game wrong as far as my pick, and I'm going to do some fact checking for that to verify. Yeah, I did pick that one wrong because I actually picked the 49ers thinking something miraculous would happen, and I ain't gonna say I was let down, but I didn't pick right. But I'm bringing this story up because there were 1,000 all-purpose yards combined between both teams. New Orleans had 571, and San Francisco had 486. Quite a few first downs. The passing matchup, San Fran had 393. New Orleans had 323. What I always like to watch in a game, and this is kind of what makes or breaks a team, and I'm sorry for that noise. What kind of makes or breaks a team is penalties, and this game was no exception. San Fran had 78 yards worth of penalties, whereas with New Orleans they only had 40 yards worth. I mean, that's still a lot, but penalties can kind of be like your deal breaker. So I wanted to at least get that story into the mix and talk about that being like kind of, I ain't gonna say, and it could have been so much of a high scoring game. I mean, they ended up having 64 points scored in the game, but the final score was 23-41. So it was more so New Orleans time to shine and do what they do and let it be what it is. Now I am jumping a little bit into what I promised I would do, and I won't be doing these every week, but I will be kind of just giving that little pulse check to the NBA. So far, give or take, we're about 7, maybe 8 games into the season. A few teams have 8 games. Right now, looking at the standings for both the East and the West, Cleveland lost their first game of the year. They hadn't lost a game since game 4 against Golden State, and they lost yesterday. So it's a big, somewhat of a hoopla behind that. But teams can't. I mean, it's not often or hardly at all that you hear a team go 82-0. So just wanted to bring that up. Like I said, Cleveland's first. Oddly enough, Charlotte is second. They're also 6-1, but they got off to a great start last year, and it was always like, okay, well, what's next? So that's where we're at now. On the Western Conference, Clippers are number 1. I don't really get too excited about the Clippers when regular season starts. I wait until postseason to really see if the real Clippers team will show up. Thunder second, 6-1. Spurs playing tonight. They're 5-2. My squad, Houston, has been struggling. They're 4-3. I'm tempted to say that was the team that beat them, but I don't want to say that and be like 1,000,000% wrong. So I'd rather just kind of fact check it. But while I'm doing that, One of the stories or one of the teams that I want to talk about is quote unquote the winless 76ers. They still have yet to win a game. It looked like their first game of the season when they played against the Thunder was kind of like the closest shot they had of actually getting a win, and they weren't able to do so. So it was what it was. And I'm sorry, random fact just to share. The team that Cleveland lost to yesterday was the Atlanta Hawks, who Kent Bazemore had a pretty solid performance. He and I think it's Kyle Korver, I forgot, because they kind of pointed out like their backcourt being like a very dominant backcourt as far as scoring went. The 76ers are an interesting team. They have been building for almost 5 years. It's probably been longer. And I think if you really know basketball and really understand basketball, so this is kind of going to be my off the hip, but I have tabs, so I'm going to just hip it, but talk about it all at the same time. They have the team to kind of attempt to win, but they also have to be willing to have that leadership on the floor, not just someone coaching the team and telling them to do stuff. I don't really put a lot of high hopes in them, and the reason I don't is because, as I mentioned earlier, they're a young team, and to make matters worse, Ben Simmons is out for 3 months. Joel Embiid technically is in his rookie year with the team. Nerlens Noel, I don't feel ever got a chance to really kind of come into his own, but he's working on that now. Jahlil Okafor, thankfully he's bounced back from his idiocracy last season, as far as being a rookie. I think this year was kind of like get in shape, come to play, be ready to play, and he understands that now. I would say after, if they haven't won their first game after like 15 games, we'll come back to them and bring this story back up again, which, like I said, usually in about 2 or 3 weeks, you kind of can do another gauge and see, okay, let's see how teams are looking right now and how everybody's playing as far as the standings go. One team that I do want to talk about, and this kind of goes into my next topic, is the Golden State Warriors, who lost their first game against San Antonio, and I believe they also lost to the Lakers. So when they lost those games, it was, oh my God, we're worried. Golden State doesn't look as good as we expect. There's no telling what's going to happen. But they ended the Thunder's undefeated. They were undefeated going into that game. Excuse me. And I'm bringing this story up and I'm talking about it because this was the game that everybody wanted to see. They wanted to see Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook go at it. And it's nice to say that they got it, but I also feel like they didn't. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just the way basketball is. Westbrook had 20 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds. Solid stat line. Didn't go into triple-double mode. Everyone's trying to see if Westbrook will average a triple-double for his career. For the season. Cue that up to we'll believe it when we see it. And that's just how it is. Durant in that game scored 39. Steph Curry wasn't really the best shooter for that night. He scored 21, but it wasn't like excellent shooting. Bring up Steph Curry as well because it was a coincidence that one game he went 0 for 13 from the 3-point line, or 0 for 10, something like that, and then follows it up with like a 56-point performance, I believe. Whatever it was just unexpected. But you basketball stories like that always draw an ear, draw an attention. So I wanted to talk about this game because it was more Westbrook versus Durant, but it was also Westbrook was owning a lot of the defenders that they were putting up against him from Oklahoma City. Oladipo would have had no chance because he was out of, position wise. It just did not go well. So that's where I'm at with that match. Next topic, we'll jump a little into our fun talk of the FGC, which for those of you who do or do not know, You'll hear that term on this podcast related to the fighting game community, where a lot of your tournaments that happen at various events such as CEO, Capcom Pro Tour, the weekly tournaments for esports in California, you'll hear these come up from time to time. And they did the Capcom Pro Tour North America Finals at the Battlegrounds for Red Bull, and Knuckle Dew was able to win that qualifying match, which was in Seattle, Washington. Big news and a big thing, because there are a lot of guys who were in that tournament that should have been shoo-ins, especially most of the individuals with evil geniuses between Ricky Ortiz. And for the record, Ricky Ortiz is a chick and she can play. And it's not like she's judged differently. It's, hey, you're on the sticks, come on and get it. So she plays like it's nothing. Justin Wong had somewhat of a decent run, but not the greatest run. Trying to think who else was in it that I know kind of held it on. K Brad was okay. I mean, he came in 5th. He tied with RB. Like I said, Justin Wong was 4th. Punk was 3rd. Tokido, who was kind of like the expected favorite, he came in 2nd. And as I mentioned already, Knuckle Dew was 1st. So go from that fighting game community to another fighting game community, which I watched, but I wasn't able to really watch it the way I wanted to, because the stream source that I was looking at it as to how I was catching games wasn't the greatest, but it did its job. And so I watched a little bit of the Smash Studio. Sorry, I should be on Smash Summit 3, which Smash Summit 3 is an interesting scenario because it takes the Smash games and adds little unique twists. Like one that they do with Smash Tournament or Smash Summit is they do what's called like a college tournament, where let's say you have everyone from MIT and then you may have everyone from University of Maryland. Like you'll get 8 players from that team who all are there to win, and they knock each other off one by one until it's whichever team has no players left to play wins that matchup, and then goes on to the next round. So I've seen a few tournaments for that. I play Smash once in a while. I'm not the best. I just kind of like playing it because it's there, and it's mostly how I've carried the game, since owning it or since watching it. So going back to Street Fighter V, at the end of the tournament, Capcom gave a little bit of eye candy, which you always know eye candy can either be the greatest of ease, or you can feel like you're on a flying trapeze. And it's no exception. It was a mixture of the greatest of ease, but it was a decent amount of flying trapeze. And as I've heard the term used a lot recently with work and just life, there was some massive finesse. The Street Fighter V community is going to have Akuma coming, which if anyone knows, and I'll kind of give a little bit of background, because I know a lot of people like Akuma. Who is that? Akuma Matata? No, just not even try it. Akuma actually comes from the Tekken community. So he was a known character from Tekken. If you go back, like I want to say Tekken 3 or Tekken 4, could be later than that. But he's a character on Tekken 7 Tekken 7 tournament, which should be coming to the US soon. Had a few tournaments for that going on television, but they brought up a screen showing that there's going to be Akuma on the Capcom Fighter Tour, Capcom Pro Fighter Tour Q. So I wanted to get that shared and talk about that as well, as we continue our topics. Now I'm kind of dabbling a little bit, because what I want to do is 2 things. First, I want to talk about, matter of fact, my podcast. What am I doing? First thing I'm going to talk about is how Mac got it wrong, because I said they got it wrong, but then I really realized something, and both my twin and I have confirmed we're going to go to the Apple Store whenever that may be. I can't tell you, but after seeing what we ended up seeing or getting news that she didn't know about and I kind of knew about, we got solid clarification. The new MacBooks that are coming out, goodbye to USB ports. They have USB-C ports, which for some people can be okay. Likely, I'm assuming they're gonna have Thunderbolt. I don't know. Sorry, long day. I'm not tired. I'm not bored from doing the podcast. I'm just tired. Period. But I wanted to be a man of my word and do what I do. But they've taken the MagSafe connection, and like I said, I mentioned to you last week. If you didn't hear it or don't know what I mean, go back and listen to the podcast when I kind of give some general or simple informative details in reference to what could be coming. So, I like I said, I want to see the new Mac. My concern and my questioning of technology is, will they get that extended add-on and all that crap, or do you need to buy a whole bunch of USB-C type dongles that have USB ports on them and use it that way? I really couldn't give like a concrete answer yet, because it's still in the open. And my final topic, and I'm going to speak on this because I did hear the album, but I'm going to be honest in my feedback from the album that I have. So I was able to listen to Big Baby Dram by Dram, who, if anyone doesn't know, the hit single he's on now is with Lil Yachty, for Broccoli. Back in the day, he was doing I Like to Cha Cha. He was part of that, whole regimen. I want to say it was last year, maybe the year before. I will admit, I enjoy listening to his album. And granted, the version I had was an edited version, but it still played and went. Another one of those start to finish, like I could actually listen to it and not, let me skip through this, let me hear a little bit of this, okay, I got a little bit of it, now I want to hear this song. Sometimes albums can get screwed or get the short end of the stick because we want to go to the hit singles that we know. That's why if you go back and look at a lot of Beyonce's albums, a lot of them had tracks that had already came out and been, in rotation for a minute. So I'm not gonna give like I think it's a 4 out of a 5 or 9 out of a 10 or 8 out of 10, whatever. I'm just gonna say that I was able to listen to the CD and actually enjoy it. So if you have a chance or have not gotten an opportunity to do so, check out check out Dram's album, Big Dram. It is in stores. It is on Amazon. Yeah, shameless plug. You have multiple ways of getting it, iTunes, stuff like that. So I feel like a zombie. I don't know if I'm going to jump back up, but knowing me, I'm probably going to, because I need to save this, get it worked on, add a loop, all of those things. And I know a lot of you are like, I don't know what you're talking about. And as tired as I am, I'm probably not going to know what I said until I go back and listen to it and laugh. So with those closeouts and caps being presented, this is Bright82, aka Bright Podcast, signing out. Follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, and on iTunes under Bright Podcast. I truly have more stories that I'm doing. Initially, I did sports. Sports was working, but I also have learned it's not that you're conforming to what others are doing, but you're doing what it takes to get that extra set of eyes on either your blog or listening to your podcast. And that's just something I wanted to kind of give as a general share from my experience with this. So I'll go ahead and cap it here. Sorry I'm being all sentimental and emotional. You know how I do. But as always, BT signing out. Y'all take it easy. Stay blessed. Peace.